Hello, my name is Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
And I am glad that I don't have to wear this microphone on the inside of my shirt anymore. That's right, I no longer have this microphone duct taped to the inside of my shirt and pulling out hairs in my chest and just otherwise being a complete nuisance. Now I have this slightly less obtrusive thing hanging from my collar. So, hey, it's an improvement, right? So, what are we doing here? Oh, that's right! This is episode 2 of
The Synthesizer Addict.
Alright guys, so back in episode 1, I asked you for feedback as to what you wanted to see more of in future episodes. And you know what? To this point, the feedback has been all Blofeld. All Blofeld all the time is what you guys want. So you know what? This is a very democratic show that I'm running here. So you guys voted, I'm going to take action. This is better than the US government. This is better than the US election process. We are going to take action and we're going to do a Blofeld episode. How do the politicians hold they hold their thumbs like this? So this is going to be an all Blofeld episode. I promise. No new... Well, anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a couple sounds that I've created previously, and then we'll create yet another sound from scratch. So, as usual, this should be a lot of fun, especially for you folks who seem to really like your Blofeld. So, before we do that, we're going to get to this week's...
Question of the week.
That's right, it is the question of the week. And this week's one is very simple. So I want to start seeing some comments on this down in the YouTube comments. And I'll post the question this time on Facebook, and I'll post it on Twitter, so you guys will have some other places to respond to it. So the question is, what do you think of the new Minimoog reissue that's coming out? I, for one, am very excited about it. I wish that I had the 3,500 some odd bucks to shell out to get a copy of it. But I'm really extremely intrigued by it. I like the fact that they've added some new functionality, but the look and feel really just looks and feels like an original Minimoog. It looks great from what I've heard. It sounds great. I would love to at least try one, if not somehow get my hands on one. So I want to know what you guys think. So remember, you can comment down in the YouTube comments below. You can go to facebook.com/thesynthezizeraddict, or you can go to Twitter, and I am at synth_addict. Any one of those places we can continue the conversation. So that's that. But for now, let's get to the Blofeld. Okay guys, so here's the deal. You're not going to be able to see my face, but you know what? You don't need to see my face. What you are interested in is the mighty, mighty Blofeld right here. So we're going to be looking at this via this little camera that's tucked in here. And then we're going to be looking at what I'm playing on the Kurzweil MIDI board here on this camera. Okay, got it? Got it. Good. Okay, so this is a sound that I just created the other day. This is called the Crazy Clav. Pretty neat, huh? All right, let's see what else we have here. This one I did the other day. I'm not quite sure what I think of it yet. Let's do something similar. Okay, that is kind of neat. This one, maybe you guys can help me with this. But there's an interesting quirk with the Blofeld. All of the LFOs, from what I understand, are completely independent of one another. So you play one note, all right, that's got the right basic idea. And then no matter how hard I tried to sync everything up with one another, yeah, hear how that one was off? So I can't get them in perfect sync with one another. It's very frustrating. And nothing that I tried was able to get them into sync with one another. So if you guys can think of a way to do it, please comment down below in the YouTube comments and let me know if there's some sort of trick that I can do. But I think it's just a quirk with the Blofeld where each LFO is independent and you can't actually sync all of them with one another. Anyway, if you have any ideas, let me know. All right, here's the Blofeld's version of an organ. Now, my Blofeld does not have the samples built into it. I have not turned on that functionality. So this is just using wavetables and the integrated, sawtooth, pulse waves, triangle waves, and sine waves. So I kind of had to simulate a Leslie because the Blofeld doesn't have a Leslie effect built into it. Not bad, usable, right? This one was used at the end of the Synthesizer Addict theme song. This sound was used at the beginning of the first video. I don't know, guys, I just kind of have this thing for sounds that play themselves. What else have we got here? Oh, so this reminds me of some sounds that Porcupine Tree used back in the, the In Absentia album, maybe? Yeah, I haven't used this one in a while. This one's neat. I just like holding down a whole bunch of keys and hearing what it does. Cool. I, like everybody else in the world, decided to create my own Hoover-style sound. You guys know the Hoover sound. This is done to death on the Alpha Juno 2. So I decided when I first got my Blofeld to put it through its paces and see what I could do to create a Hoover sound, not knowing that later on in this bank of sounds that there were about 20 other Hoover sounds that other people had already created. But this was my own take on it. It's different from the regular Hoover sound, and that's kind of what I like about it. The very first sound that I ever created on the Blofeld. It's not bad, right? Not bad for a first try. So let's go ahead and create a new sound. So I've already gone ahead and kind of come up with a map of what I would like this sound to basically sound like, the very high level details. So let's go ahead and get started with that now. let's initialize our voice. Should be a basic sawtooth. Yep. So let's go ahead and edit our oscillators. For this particular sound, I'm going to use the low piano wavetable. And then just as a quick refresher for folks who might not be familiar with wavetable synthesis, this is not a sample of a piano. As you can hear, it barely resembles anything even remotely like a piano. But instead, it's a series of, I believe it's 127 or probably 128 if it goes to 0, single cycle waveforms that we can cycle through using what's kind of mislabeled here as the pulse width modulation amount. It's really not pulse width modulation. They just kind of, they share this parameter with the pulse width parameters. That was kind of redundant, wasn't it? As we cycle up and down through this, you can hear our waveform change. So I think what we'll do, let's crank this modulation amount up to its maximum. Let's keep the modulation source as LFO1, but let's go to LFO1 and just turn its rate way down. So now as we play notes, I think even that's faster than I'd like. Let's make it very, very slow. Maybe split the difference here. There we go, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to detune this oscillator just, I'm going to detune this oscillator just a hair, because I'm going to configure oscillator 2 using the same wavetable. There we go. And using the same modulation. So again, we'll start it back at waveform 0. We'll make its pulse, well, again, its modulation amount 63. And we'll also make him set to LFO1. And then if we detune him just a hair, yeah, you can hear the very slight detune in these voices. Almost sounds a little bit like the backwards piano sound at the beginning of Roundabout, doesn't it? Just a hair. There it goes. That's it. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring in oscillator 3. I'm going to make him a sine wave. Okay. But I'm going to have him frequency modulated, FM source. I'm going to have that FM source be oscillator 2. And let's crank that amount way up. And what we should get is almost kind of a DX7 type sound. Yeah, you can really hear it in these low notes. Just to compare, well, let's change this to a triangle wave. Let's hear what that sounds like. It's a little bit more edge to it. I might go with that. Let's try it with a pulse wave. not bad. I think I like the triangle the best. Well, we'll try the sawtooth, but I think I'm going to end up liking the triangle the best. Alright, let's go with the triangle wave. Very, very, you know, 1980s DX, FM synthesis type sound there. Cool. What I would like to do now, let's just try this at a few different octaves. Let's see if we like it at 16 feet, or if we like it better either higher or lower. Go with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our modulation matrix, and I'm going to make it so that oscillator 3 doesn't really kick in until we really pound on the keys. So we want this to affect oscillator 3's level. There we go. And then let's crank this way up. So interestingly, that doesn't seem to be having too much of an effect. Let's do things kind of the opposite way. Let's crank this down. Let's go to oscillator 2. Go to his FM. And let's see what happens when we modulate him with oscillator 3. Interesting. Let's adjust the octave now. I like it the other way better. So let's go ahead and, oh, you know what? Okay, I know what the problem was. Let's put this back the way that we had it. So oscillator 3, before FM source is oscillator 2. He'll be the full amount, and then we'll go back to oscillator 2, and his FM source, we'll just bring that down to 0. Oscillator 3, let's turn his level down by default. So you can just catch a little bit of the FM type sound if you really pound on the keys. But not so much if you play gently. You know what, I don't know if I'm loving the LFO as a modulation source for these wavetables. Let's try this. Let's go. Let's make the modulation source, let's make that velocity as well. So we can make sure that we're hearing this okay. Let me crank the velocity down, velocity sensitivity down to nothing. So that way any velocity changes that we're making as we play are purely just the wavetable changes and the FM changes and nothing else. Okay, but what can we do to make this more interesting? As of right now, it's not the most interesting sound in the world. It's not really thrilling me. Actually kind of interesting as a monophonic voice. So what's happened here is by turning the unisono all the way up to 6 voices, we've basically killed the polyphony. All right, let's work with that. Let's go to our filter. The first thing that I'd like to do is let's give this a little bit of edge. Alright, that's kind of neat with the overdrive there. I just got a voice there for a second that didn't have the detune, and I sort of liked that. Let's hear what it sounds like again. Alright, you know what we'll do? Let's turn that on. Let's crank it up. Let's make the detune. Then in our modulation matrix, let's find our unisono. Oh, actually we need to make a modifier here. So we'll create a modifier that is pressure times unisono. There we go. And operation is times. So that's modifier 1. And we'll have that modulate pitch. So the harder I press, it's still a little bit too harsh. I think 6 is too many voices. Let's back that down to 3, because then what I'd like to do is let's go to our matrix. Let's take our modifier 1 again. Again, we'll crank this up just to test it out. And we'll send this to our filter pan. The more pressure we apply, the more the 3 voices pan apart from one another. That's neat, but I would think I want to make that velocity rather than pressure. So that is, where'd that go? Velocity, where are you? Here we go. Neat. What happens if we do this with 6 voices? What does it do? It's just a little too wacky. Let's bump this down a bit. Now, see, I just still don't like 6. Let's try that back down at 3. what I'd like to do now is let's make it so that our pressure will open up the filter as well. Just a touch. So that's going to be pressure. And again, we don't need to use poly pressure since this is a monophonic voice anyway. And this is going to adjust our cutoff. Alright, that's kind of neat. We need to add some LFO, so we can do, we really want LFO 2 plus mod wheel, so we're gonna have to make another modulator here, or excuse me, modifier. That will eventually go to pitch. Alright, modifier 2, that's going to be LFO 2 times mod wheel. Now we should get a relatively slow vibrato once I bring up the wheel. Relatively slow, but perhaps a bit exaggerated. So let's do two things. Let's bring this up to 49. Go back to our matrix. Let's find that modifier. And let's turn down its effect. I like just having a little bit in there regardless. So we'll keep that as it is, but let's go ahead and make it so that we're always getting a little bit of modulation there. What's the best way to do that? LFO2 times pitch. Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, let's make it LFO2 times pressure. And then we'll crank this up a touch. Just going to try one more quick thing. Three just seems to be the magic number, huh? with a started off with kind of a pseudo piano sound, and now we have, you know, this screaming pseudo analog style sound. Just for fun, let's make this polyphonic again. What does that sound like? Whoops. Yeah. Well, that's kind of neat. We don't have too much polyphony. What, about 4 notes? Yeah, about 4 notes. Pretty darn cool. Okay, I'm running short on time, so what we're going to do is we're going to tie this up. We're going to quickly add in, see if a little bit of phaser will sound good. Might not need it. Yeah, a little bit of chorus. I really wish I could add the effects to the modulation matrix, because I think this would sound good if we made that pressure sensitive somehow or velocity sensitive. Just a little chorus, and then just a hint of delay. Hello, there we go. Turn down the mix, and what do you know, we have a sound. There we go. There it is. I'm going to quickly name it, and that is it. We are done. We have created a sound from scratch. How exciting is that? Okay, so this is going to be episode 2. Let's call this episode 2. All right, let's wrap things up. All right, guys, so that's about all the time we have for this episode. This was great, but I think the next episode we're going to make it a Blofeld-free zone. I think just I'm kind of hitting Blofeld overload. And plus, for my one fail of the week, my fail of the week was actually the Blofeld itself, unfortunately. I went to play back the closing jam, which you'll be hearing shortly, and the Blofeld crashed. And it crashed several times, and it crashed in an extremely scary way, where it stopped playing sound, and then I went to change patches, and it showed nothing. It showed that it had no patches whatsoever. So that's very frightening for a gentleman who has a lot of patches and isn't always good about backing them up like he's supposed to. So, fortunately, turned it off, turned it on again, and what do you know? It worked just fine. So, it did that a few times during playback. I'm not sure what it is about this particular patch. This was while I was trying to play back the new sound that we created in this episode. So a little scary, but you know, as great as the Blofeld is, as much as I love it, it is known for being buggy. This just happens to be the first time that I've run into a bug on it. So hopefully we won't have to encounter that in the future. So anyway, next episode will be a Blofeld-free zone. What I have in the works coming up soon, the Roland D50. I've been kind of futzing around with that, trying to get it to work properly, trying to get the expansion card to work properly, trying to get it to retain memory after I turn it off and turn it on again. And it's been very frustrating, and I'm sick of it. So I think the next episode we're going to finally get this thing nailed down one way or another. So, and in fact, this might be a mini episode. It might not be a full-fledged Synthesizer Addict episode. It might just be a little mini, you know, little partial episode to hold you over in between episodes. So what do you guys think of that? So please let me know. Send me your feedback. You know, comment below. See me on Facebook. I'm at facebook.com/thesynthezizeraddict. I'm at Twitter. I'm at synth_addict. And please let me know what you think, because I would like to tailor this show around what you guys want to see. So for now, I think we ought to end like we end every show. Well, this is only the second episode, but we're going to end every episode with a closing jam. So here it is, the closing jam. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.